everyone, it's Heather Nichols, and today I'm going to share how I made this set of cozy cards using the new Cozy Winter Stencil and Clear combo set. The Cozy Winter Stencil and Clear combo set includes stencils to create both left and right mittens in a large size and also a whole lineup of small mittens. Once you stencil your mitten designs, you can add details using the clear stamps in the set. The coordinating dies cut out the whole row of small mittens with one pass through your die cut machine, and there are dies for the larger size mittens too. I'll also be using the Nordic Snowflake stencil, and I have pixie spray to hold my stencils in place while I'm creating my project. For ink colors, I'll be using Sugar Cube, Toffee, Chocolate Truffle, Mulled Wine, Cherry Pop, Olive, and Avocado. I'll be using my blender brushes to do my stenciling. I have some from the original set and also my white blender brush. I'm using Burlap Twine on my project, and I'll also be using Bits and Pieces Snowflakes. I'll be adding splatters using Copic Opaque white ink and Chocolate Truffle liquid watercolor and my water brush. For adhesives, I'll be using foam squares and multi-medium matte. I'm starting off by doing my stenciling using the small mittens from the Cozy Winter Stencil and Clear combo set. I'm spraying pixie spray on the backs of my stencils to hold them in place while I'm doing the stenciling. There are stencils for both the left-handed and right-handed mittens, and I'm going to stencil both of those. There are 6 mittens on each stencil, and so when I'm all done stenciling, I'll end up with 6 pairs of mittens. I want some variation in color for my mittens, and so I decided to do half of my mittens with Cherry Pop and half of them with Avocado ink. I used a post-it note to mask off the areas so that I wouldn't get the red mixed in with the green. Next, I'm adding the cuffs to the mittens, and the stencil to add the cuffs works for the mittens for either right or left-handed. Just line them up with the bottom of the mitten, and there's also a guide at the top of the stencil to line it up with the top part of the mitten. On my Cherry Pop mittens, I'm adding an Avocado cuff, and on my Avocado mittens, I'm adding a Cherry Pop cuff. The last stencil adds a stripe design onto the mittens, and this one is optional. You don't have to do the stripe designs if you don't want to. I really like the texture that they add to the mittens, so I'm layering that over the top, and on my Cherry Pop mittens I am adding mulled wine stripes, and on the Avocado mittens I am adding olive stripes. And as you probably noticed, the stripe design works on both the left-handed and right-handed mittens. Next, I'm using the clear stamps from the Cozy Winter Stencil and Clear set to add details to the mittens. I'm starting off with the cuff, and I'm using the smaller of the 2 cuffs for the small mittens, and I'm stamping with an acrylic block. I'll use olive for the Avocado cuffs, and I'll use mulled wine for the Cherry Pop cuffs. I'm cutting out the mittens with the coordinating dies before I move on to adding more details. The dies in the Cozy Winter set cut out all of 6 small mittens at one time. There's a die for the left-handed mittens and there's a die for the right-handed mittens. I lined them up over my stencil design and sent them through my die cut machine. I used the negative die cut from cutting out my mittens as a template in my MISTI to stamp the rest of the details. I'm adding a little pattern to the front of the mittens using Sugar Cube ink, and I'm varying the patterns. There's a Nordic star, a tree, and a little lineup of 3 trees with polka dots that I'm going to use. The template is on the foam insert in the MISTI, and once I set the pieces into the template, I'll pick which stamp I'm going to add, line that up on the mitten, and then close the lid of the MISTI to pick up that stamp. I'll ink up the stamp with Sugar Cube ink and then close the lid of the MISTI to stamp the pattern onto the mitten. Setting the mittens up like this in my MISTI allow me to stamp the patterns with the Sugar Cube ink multiple times if I need to. Don't you love how the mittens turned out? For the backgrounds on my cards, I'll be using the Nordic Snowflake stencil. I'm adding this to Toffee cardstock with some pixie spray, and then I'll use my blender brush to add Toffee ink through the stencil. I'm creating 3 cards with the mittens, and so I stenciled 3 backgrounds. I love adding splatters to my projects, and I'm doing that on this project as well. I like to use Chocolate Truffle watercolor and also the Copic Opaque white ink. I'll pick the color up on my water brush and then tap the brush over my finger to add the splatters to my project. For the sentiments on my card, I used the Merry, Bright, and Cozy sentiment from the clear stamps in the Cozy Winter Stencil and Clear combo set. I set that up in my MISTI where I wanted it to go on my background, and then I stamped that onto each background using Chocolate Truffle ink. I wanted to attach my mittens together, and so I used Burlap Twine for my mitten strings. I just used tape runner on the back of the mittens to attach the burlap twine and attach the mittens together. After I had my mittens attached together, I arranged where I wanted them on the card and then attached them to the card using foam squares just to pop them up a little bit. I'm adding the panels to sugar cube card bases. The backgrounds are trimmed just a little bit, so I'm lining them up on the top so a little tiny sliver of sugar cube shows at the bottom of the card. The final step to this project is I'm adding the bits and pieces snowflakes scattered throughout the background on each of the cards. I'm attaching the snowflakes onto the cards using my favorite liquid adhesive, Multi-Medium Matte. These cute and cozy mitten cards are done, and I can't wait to share these with my loved ones for the holidays. I hope you enjoyed learning how I created these cozy cards, and I hope you learned something new today. You can find the supplies that I used to create these cards at the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next time.